Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. Yeah. I'm okay. Thanks. I'm quite nervous, to be honest. But yeah. I'm okay. Yeah. Is there anything that uh, I need to do before we start, or anything like that?
No, not in particular. Just, of course, it's a public call, so it's free. But if you could stay off names and places, I would appreciate that, and I'm all ears.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No. I'm definitely fine with that. Yeah. I definitely would like that as well. So yeah. Shall I start out by reading what I sent you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just get the notes up right now. Um. Apologies, 1 second. Okay. So, by the way, is my audio okay?
It's good, thank you.
Okay, great. Uh, Dear Stefan, I've been an intermittent listener for about a decade. I found your explanations of secular ethics to be really insightful, and I've tried to apply this to the way I view the world and try to act. However, on a personal level, I've generally struggled with throughout my life. I've had some adverse childhood experiences, which you've helped me to identify, but I've not been able to overcome. I was diagnosed with autism as a toddler, and until recently have had minimal help in managing my life around the condition. Despite being accepted into what was a high tier university and getting a STEM degree, I've experienced chronic underemployment. Seeing the way the world is going has left me feeling that there's very little I can do to improve things without my efforts being futile. Fundamentally, I feel a lack of purpose and direction in my life. My limited dating experience has left me feeling disappointed, anxious, and nihilistic about relationships, which I suspect is connected to childhood experiences. I'm now closer to 30 than 20 and desperately need to feel that I have a future. I know that part of me wanted to apply to this call for affirmation, but I know that you will be as brutally honest with me as you can, which is scary. And to be as specific as I can about what I'd like to talk about, how can I build hope and positivity for myself in a world that is by design against me? And I say that in jest. How do I find purpose when I can see that humans are, albeit intelligent animals, driven by adaptive behavior, and I have no power to change society's flaws?
Great questions, great comments. I think it's stuff we all struggle with, and I wouldn't underestimate the degree to which I assume you're a white male. So, yeah, the world is kind of
Yes.
against you.
Yes.
In order to teach you.
Um, but yeah, and I know, like, we've got to try to to try and do the best we can despite our personal circumstances, right? But yeah, is there anywhere in particular that you'd like me to start with, like elaborating on anything or
Sure,
anything like that?
let's do childhood.
Okay. So like chronological.
Whatever works best for you.
Okay, fine. So yeah, my childhood was complicated. I think it was quite different to a lot of people's childhoods. So, like I mentioned, I was diagnosed with autism when I was quite young, and like some of my earliest memories are, yeah, like some are positive, but of course the negative ones stand out. So I would always be, as a toddler, the child who would like preferred to play on their own. But like academically, I've always performed quite well. Hence, achieving a degree and so on. But yeah, I've of course I know you've talked about like adverse childhood experiences quite a lot as well. So like my parents, I would say they didn't follow the role of like peaceful parenting particularly. It wasn't as bad as like some other people's experiences, of course, but it was yeah, like I did experience quite a lot of like verbal abuse, and also sometimes physical abuse. Um, and yeah, I guess I've just never really felt very comfortable, or like I know almost like I never felt particularly bonded to my parents, to be honest. And yeah, kind of from there. So I was in mainstream education for the first few years of my childhood, or until I was about 10 years old, and then I was homeschooled. Those first years of education, It was strange because my family have never been particularly religious, but I was sent to it was a state school, but it was like a Catholic affiliated school. It's kind of like there would be like attending mass, like I think like fortnightly and stuff like that. And I think they just told me that they said send me there because someone said it was a good school. But it was a really quite terrible experience for me. I yeah, I remember like kind of yeah, again, I always found it very difficult to make friends, and um I was really scared of teachers, because they were never like really physically abusive to me, because I think that's like kind of illegal, but they were like verbally and like emotionally kind of would would shout at me, would raise their voice, would like yeah, I felt like there was never any kind of like negotiation, any room for thinking outside the box, right? Like I could obviously see lots of like I had lots of there were lots sorry, lots of like holes in the narrative when they were like, trying to like talk about religious stuff. And um I think a lot of the time, and like this has also been true in like later years where like it's been like I've sometimes like I think I've understood things more than the teacher, and that's been yeah, I think that obviously has led to conflict, yeah, I just found it very difficult to relate to other people my age, and while I wouldn't say there was never a time where I had 0 friends at all, I still like, I would only have, like, 1 or 2 friends, and I wouldn't be, like, their best friend, right? So it would be, like, one-sided friendships, and, sorry, am I talking too long?
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, a lot of the time when I look back on those friendships, including until quite recently, I suppose, that they definitely had like yeah, I definitely wasn't kind of held in. I know I never really felt truly yeah, like it was an equal kind of friendship, like I said, and a lot of the time, like people would tell me to stop like hanging out with these people because they're not good for me and they're not nice to me or whatever. But I always saw the alternative as being just to have nobody to to be friends with, and I thought that would be worse. So I never, yeah, like I just kind of endured it, I suppose, and I thought it was fine. And I think um while of course like being autistic isn't everything about me, I definitely think it's left me more kind of open to like being influenced by other people and like ideas and stuff. So yeah, I think that's most of what I want to talk about early childhood. Um, then after that, but by the time I was about like 10, 11 years old, so I don't know if you're, because obviously I'm from the UK, right? So I don't know how familiar you are with like the education system there, but you go into like secondary school when you're about 10 or 11 years old, and instead of that, I was or like my mum kind of gave me the well, I still wasn't. I don't think it's really my choice, but because she was responsible for me. But I was um going to be homeschooled, and I was for a few until I was 16. Um, yeah, I don't want to be too specific, but I suppose that's fine. And that was nicer for me. I feel like I yeah. I mean, I guess I have very mixed feelings about that time in my life. I did feel like I was able to like I would like self-teach quite a lot, during those years, because like my parents were in no way qualified to educate really on like anything academic, and so I kind of, yeah, I just somehow managed to kind of like learn in my own way, I guess. And my socialization during that time was of course still limited. There was like a very small group of like other people who were homeschooled, and I would yeah, I would kind of try and socialize with them a bit, but I always still never felt like I fit in. A lot of them were like very left leaning. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm particularly right wing. I still I just I've always tried to be like open minded and question things, and and yeah, I've always throughout my life I've always just come across yeah, like people who don't like it when I like question certain things and stuff like that. And so that ended, and then I went back into mainstream education, and got some qualifications, and yeah, I did really well academically for a few years, and it was kind of to the point that like I could pick to do whatever I wanted to do at university, and I thought like at the time, well, everyone's saying, don't go and do like a sociology degree or whatever because that's useless, right? So I decided to yeah to go into STEM, and I went to quite a high ranked uni. You might have heard of it, and yeah, luckily I didn't get any student debt, which was really fortunate. I'm really grateful for, but also going there was really kind of I guess you would almost say like a little bit like blackpilling about I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word, but um yeah,
Yeah,
about
that's fine.
like the world really, because like I saw like there were like some really like there were quite a few people who were like came from very powerful families and stuff, and I could just see that it was like I mean compared to like my primary school, it was like my primary school was like really gentle compared to this. There it was full on indoctrination. And even though I was in STEM, so I managed to avoid quite a lot of it. Um, and but yeah, it was really quite shocking to see, and obviously everyone knows how university is like nowadays. Um, and then kind of part way into my university experience, something happened in 2020, which I'm sure we all know about, and that was that was a really interesting time for me because part of me really enjoyed the social isolation, but I was also kind of yeah, it just by that point, like, I just kind of it felt like I almost I obviously knew that, like, the lockdowns and stuff were a terrible idea and all the mandates and stuff, and it felt like I know there are people, but very few and far between. Like, I was one of the only people who could really, like, just see how nonsensical and, or, I could be malicious, the whole system was, the whole situation was, and, yeah, since then, I have experienced periods of unemployment, particularly like during the COVID period and stuff. And then I've yeah, I've always kind of struggled with like even now like I would be considered like underemployed. I do mostly like kind of freelance work, and yeah, that can be kind of up or down. Um, and yeah, during that time, and should I talk a little bit about like my relationship history as well?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So and this is one of the reasons I'm very glad that this is anonymous is because actually I do feel quite ashamed and embarrassed about this. But I didn't really have my first relationship until I was 23. So and that was yeah, I was always very like it's not it's as a guy, it's not something that you really tell people about. You can't keep it to yourself. Before then, like I had tried to get a girlfriend, I suppose. And yeah, I guess I always came across like I was able to initially like have people interested in me, but then yeah, it would always just get like messed up some way. And like, or like, I would just like, a lot of the time, like, I would kind of look back like 6 months later at an interaction I had with someone and be like, oh, wow, they actually they were actually asking me out like on a date or something. And then, but by then it's far too late. Um, and yeah, but when I did finally enter a relationship, so I've had two relationships. First one lasted about 8 months, and I kind of went into it. Partly was just like, I'm in my 20s now. Like, it might never happen. So I thought I may as well just get some experience, and um unfortunately, um my first girlfriend, she kind of had kept quite a few things from me. It turned out like I should have seen the red flags, and now looking like in hindsight, I would, because now I kind of know more. But like, she was she was very feminist, and she had quite a high body count, you could say, and she kind of kept that from me for quite a while. And it was just kind of it was just kind of um it was enjoyable while it lasted, but then that finished. Then my second relationship, that lasted about 3 years, and it was shortly after the first one, and I really liked her, for at least the first couple years. Um, it wasn't just about like the sex or anything. It was like she she um she said she was like a voluntarist, and she really seemed to agree with a lot of we really seemed to have a lot in common. And she seemed to be, like I seemed like I could really trust her. Like in quite stark contrast to my previous relationship. And yeah, um, yes, yeah. I almost feel like I've been duped a bit though, because it seemed like I said, for the first couple of years, like she would always kind of go along with whatever I was kind of, like hobbies and interests, like to go to a certain place to talk about certain things. And then after a couple of years, she kind of started saying like, I don't actually like doing any of this. Like, why wouldn't you let me like pick, like things that we do, like and stuff like that. And I was like, I've kept on giving you the option, to like, pick your own things, but you never did. And you seemed you said at the time, you were perfectly happy, um, doing these things I wanted to do, going to these places I want to go. And so at the time there was no way I could have known, but I was like being selfish or whatever. And so basically, I at least the way I think about it now is like I had been told, that she was a certain type of person, and I just kind of worked with what I could, and kind of thought, yeah, this is fine for me. This is what I'm looking for in a relationship. And then um, it turned out that she'd been kind of like bending the truth at least. I guess I don't know, maybe just to kind of keep me around. But yeah, and then that ended quite recently. That ended only a few weeks ago actually. So I just thought well now it just kind of feels like I like I don't really see any purpose in my life. I have things that I enjoy to do. I enjoy doing. I do work at the moment. I looking to hopefully get my own place soon, because at the moment I'm kind of in between. Like, I guess mainly live at a family home still. But I've spent time living with partners as well. And so that's good. And like financially, I'm kind of okay. That's another thing about my family. Like, well, there isn't really that strong I feel like they couldn't give me a lot of like emotional kind of connection and like development. Like I've had to kind of
Sorry,
find that
sorry.
myself. Oh,
Couldn't?
sorry.
What do you mean by couldn't?
Couldn't what?
You said they couldn't give you much emotional connection.
Well, yeah, I don't know. They simply, I said they simply didn't. I suppose.
Didn't and couldn't are two different things,
Well,
right?
yeah, but I mean, it can be the same result, right? So,
Hang on,
like
hang
to
on.
me,
Now,
it's like to
that's
me,
good.
it's
That's
like,
good. That's an interesting philosophical question, right? Like you just
yes,
kind
yeah.
of blew past that one as if it's not an important distinction, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I think you make a good
Like
point.
the same. So there's an old statement, but that says, how was it, Mark Twain? The man who doesn't read is indistinguishable from the man who can't read.
Mm,
But
yeah,
if you can read but don't read, do you
mm,
have more responsibility for not reading than if you'd never been taught how to read?
mm. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you say, and I'm not trying to nitpick, I just want to be clear.
No,
When you
that's fine.
say, my parents couldn't give me emotional connection, that's
Mm,
interesting. Now, if your father, or if your parents were brain dead, right, that they were
mm,
being kept alive by tubes, obviously they couldn't give you emotional connection. If
mm,
your father was deployed, was drafted and was deployed to some foreign war for years and years, then he would be unable to give you that kind of emotional connection, at least directly. So there are
right.
situations where, or if he was in jail. Right? So there's situations where people can't give you that kind of emotional connection. And I
Mm,
don't know whether you mean your parents were unable to in some foundational way, in which case we wouldn't judge them, right?
yeah.
Right. If your father had a railway spike through his head and was kind of drooling on himself, we would say, that's tragic, but we wouldn't blame him for not
Mm,
being a good father because he would be physically
right.
unable to do so because his brain had been half destroyed or something like that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm trying to understand what you mean. And I'm not critical or skeptical or anything. I just want to understand what you mean. Do you mean that your parents were unable to or unwilling to?
Mm. So, I suppose, yeah, like compared to the circumstances you've described, yeah, it would be it would be a matter of ability. However, it might be a good time to talk a little bit more in depth about like when I because like based on like previous calls you've had with other people, it seems like we it's a good time to like talk more about like my parents' kind of
Sure.
background. Would that be helpful? Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you see.
Yeah. I mean, but when you said unable to, is that what you
Mm,
believe that they were physically like
mm,
let's say that your father was severely autistic, like nonverbal or whatever it was, like
mm,
somehow you got born or something like that.
mm,
Then we would
yeah.
say, yeah, I mean your father, severely autistic, nonverbal,
Mm,
then he would be unable to give you that kind of emotional connection.
mm,
So
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to understand when you say they're unable to, because I want to be able to morally evaluate the situation. And moral evaluation has something to do with free will. We don't
Mhm,
morally evaluate people who are not in a state of free will, right? So if a guy robs a
mm,
bank, but it turns out that someone made him rob a bank because they took his children hostage, we wouldn't blame the person for robbing a bank. We would say they were under a state of compulsion and were not in a state of free will. Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure.
So that's
So,
what I'm trying to understand with regards to your parents. Were they unable to, or could they have but didn't?
I think it's mostly they could have but didn't. However, I will say that with the caveat that like kind of my father especially, I've always noticed he does seem to lack emotional intelligence. Um, he will and then part of like he's always had like anger issues, and so I think a lot of the time like yeah he's had to just express things in terms of anger.
Okay, hang on, hang on.
I have tried.
So sorry to
Oh,
interrupt. So again, I'm just trying to understand the language. So to
mm,
give you another analogy, let's say that in another universe, I married a Polish woman and she already had a child who only spoke Polish, right?
mhm,
Now, if that child, and let's say I never learned how to speak Polish and he never learned how to speak English, then if
mhm.
I said we were unable to communicate, would that be true? I mean, it's an interesting question, right? Because if I never learn his language and he never learns my language, then we are, in fact, unable to communicate. But we're unable to communicate because we haven't learned each other's language.
Right.
So if you say your father lacked emotional skills, that does not absolve him of moral responsibility. Because if you lack a particular skill, you learn it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
was he,
Yeah.
again, was there some biology or some etiology or something that rendered him incapable of learning better emotional
No.
skills? Or
No.
was he just lazy? Because, if I marry some woman who's got a kid who only speaks Polish, isn't it, aren't I responsible for learning how to speak Polish?
if you want a good relationship
Well,
with
no,
them,
no.
yeah, of course.
If I am responsible, whether or not I want a
Yeah.
good relationship, because I'm in the house and I'm a father
Mm,
figure. I don't have the
yeah.
choice to not learn Polish.
Mm,
Like, I don't have a moral choice. I can be a lazy bastard and I can say, learning Polish is a hassle. I'm just going to have no communication with the child.
mm,
But that's cruel, right?
yeah.
Because it's saying, kid, I'm only here for your mom. I don't care about you. You're an impediment to me. I'm not even going to learn the basics. I'm not going to spend a month or two even learning the basics. To hell with you, kid. Like, that's cruel. It's mean, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't have
No.
the moral choice to not. So that's what I'm trying to understand. When you say he lacked emotional skills, well, he's supposed to learn emotional skills, right? That's what you have to have emotional skills if you're going to be a parent.
Right. Yeah. No. When you put it that way, yeah, you're definitely kind of helping me see that. Yeah, it was more of a matter of lack of will, um,
Well, I don't
rather
know. See,
than
I don't know. That's what I'm
fundamentally.
trying to understand.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
reason why I'm hammering this point so hard is that you feel a lack of control in your life, right? You say the society's against you. And again, I'm not disagreeing with any of that,
Mm,
that you feel a certain amount of helplessness, right? Now, why do you feel a certain amount of
right.
helplessness? Because you keep describing your parents as if they're helpless. And if your
Mm,
belief about human beings is they're helpless, that's going to infect you. Like whatever we say about our parents is what we say to our own essence, to our own metaphysics, really, to our own, I'd say, souls, to use a non-technical term. But whatever we say,
mm,
whatever excuses we give to our parents, we will inevitably use to limit ourselves. If your parents are helpless, guess what? You're helpless too.
mm, yeah. That's.
So,
I,
why you said your father's lack of emotional skills? He would get angry a lot.
Yeah. Um, yeah, like raising his voice, like to the point of like just as loud you can tell it like as loud as he physically could. And like yeah, I mean occasionally it would be like physical like being hit, but that would maybe only be like a few times a year perhaps.
So I'm gonna
But
again, sorry to be annoying, but I need to pause you on your language here. You said, and occasionally being hit. So you went from active to passive, right? So
mm,
it's really important how you frame human will in your thinking. Really
mm,
important, like foundationally important.
mm,
So when people say he lost his temper, that's kind of like a passive thing. Like if I lose my keys, I'm not throwing them off a cliff. Right? If I throw my keys off a cliff, I'm not losing them, I'm throwing them away, right? So I lost
mhm,
my keys, he lost his temper, that's kind of passive. And then you say violence in terms of being hit. Then
mm,
that goes from active
like
to
smack.
passive, right?
Mm,
Because you
yeah.
didn't say he hit us. You said being hit,
Mm,
which is the equivalent of,
yeah.
the media. Things happened, right? Stuff occurred.
I think I think I know why I'm doing that.
Go ahead.
Um, I think it's because like I think it's because part of me is just so kind of horrified and disgusted by like the fact that like those things happened, and then like yeah, just really like scared.
Oh
And I
my
don't like to
God,
think
bro.
about it,
They
and
didn't
so
happen. Weather happens. They were inflicted on you
mm,
voluntarily by
yeah.
choice.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm going to be annoying now, even more annoying.
No, no, no,
But see,
no, no.
even
This is
when
what
you
I
say,
need.
here's why
This
I
is what I need.
describe things passively, because I'm annoyed that
Yeah,
things happened, and you go back to passive right away. I've just
yeah.
got to be really alert,
Mm,
because this is eating away
yeah.
at your sense of
Sorry,
will in your own life.
sorry. Yeah.
No, no, don't apologize. There's absolutely nothing to apologize for. You have nothing to
Okay.
apologize for at all. That's like
Mm,
going to the
yeah,
doctor and saying, I'm sorry that I'm unwell. It's like, you don't have to apologize. That's
yeah,
why you're at the doctor's, right? So it's no problem. No problem at all.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting and instructive.
Mm.
So,
So,
how often? Sorry, go ahead.
so you're encouraging me to phrase it in a way in the active way, kind of a more direct way.
Well, the
Kind of
factual way, I mean, accurate,
yeah,
the factual way. I
yeah,
mean, I'm asking
okay,
you to tell the truth. Shocking, I
yeah,
know, for a
okay,
moral philosopher.
yeah,
But and
yeah,
that's why I was asking if your father had some genuine mental disability,
mm,
right? I mean, if your father had epilepsy and you say he would fall down and shake from time to time, assuming he was getting the proper treatment, we wouldn't blame him for that, right?
No.
Be like unfortunate unless he somehow caused the epilepsy with, I don't know, excessive drug use or something crazy like that. So that's why I try to understand if a choice is being made or not.
Right.
If you had a father who was an old dad, right, and you'd say, he didn't run around and play with me in the playground, right? And I said, well, gee, that doesn't seem very good. And then you said, but he was 75 and really frail. We'd say, oh, okay, well, maybe he could have been a younger dad, but we wouldn't blame him for that because he's 75 and frail.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to understand. Every excuse you give to your parents leeches your sense of control over your own life.
Because then I give those excuses to myself.
Well, of course. I mean, you're a human being. They're human beings. And so everything you give to your parents is in the category called human being, because they're human beings, right? So if you say, well, people just lack skills and they have no responsibility for it and they lose their temper and it's just because they lack skills and then, hitting happens and like nobody's making any direct choices. And if nobody, then you're saying human beings can't make direct choices, things just happen. And then you sit there and say, gee, why is my life just happening to me?
So you think the problem might be that I've been kind of viewing like other people as just being passive, like, and I'm.
Well, I'll be more precise than that because I don't want to fault you for things that weren't under your control. Right. So, give me an example in your childhood, hopefully in the single digits, but whenever, when your father got really angry at you, yelled at you, or hit you, or something like that. Well, what happened? Give me an example.
And a lot of this I've tried to just like forget about really and block out, but honestly, like it's like I remember like the moments, right, when the wrath was when he chose to impose his wrath more than what preluded it. But it would be, for example, like I have like a younger sister, so like if I like I can't even remember exactly what caused or what caused.
All right,
of
so
course,
you're
but
floundering and weaseling here. And again, I say this with all due respect and no hostility. So exactly is a weasel word, right? So nobody can remember about things that happened decades ago exactly.
Right.
Right. So that's saying, that's creating an irrational standard, right? So if I said to you, do you remember a particular birthday party, let's say 13, and let's say you do remember the birthday party, right? And if I were to say, exactly when did it start? Exactly. Would you be able to answer that?
Not reliably, no. I mean, there are
you
some
couldn't.
specific events, yeah.
You could. What does exactly mean? I mean, would you say,
Right.
well, it was 3:47 and 45 seconds? Like, you wouldn't remember that, right? But even if you did, I could then just further time slice it and say, well, that was when the doorbell was rung, but no kids had come into the house yet.
Right.
So there is no such thing as exact in memories, particularly early childhood memories from decades ago, right? So when you say, I can't remember exactly, that is signaling to me that you are avoiding memory by creating a standard that is impossible to maintain.
Okay. So I'll just do my best here.
If a police officer pulls you over and he were to say to you, do you know how fast you were going? And you said, well, officer, not exactly. That would be an avoidance of an answer because nobody can know exactly how fast they're going. Let's say I glanced at the speedometer and I was going 40, but I still don't know if I was accelerating. I don't know if it's 40.01 or 39.9. Like nobody knows exactly. It's just a way of avoiding the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
okay.
Just roughly,
I'll give you
roughly,
an idea.
with the understanding that we're talking about memory, which is not exact. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah. One example I can think of roughly would be just saying the wrong thing. To be honest, it is like the most one of the most prominent things that comes up. Like, yeah, just like say like just like I don't know, using a cuss word, but like not in like just like casually because like I learned it at school or something, or like just like yeah, just like verbal
Sorry,
stuff. Really,
I
like
didn't
I
get
was
the example. I something school. I didn't quite catch that.
oh like some like naughty word that I learned at school or something. And like I know someone told me it wasn't a naughty word or whatever, and then I came home and I just like said it like, oh, I learned this new word, um, and then it was like a naughty word and I didn't know. Um, and then I would yeah, that would kind of lead to shouting and like anger. Um, and another thing I distinctly remember, and even now I still see it happen sometimes, is just when something like when someone does, because this is not just with me that this has happened. I mean, I'm the one who's like had it the most, but when people like when people don't go along with his advice on something, it is he really gets quite mad. It wouldn't. I don't think that I mean, like hitting ever happened to me because of that. It was mostly it was mostly yeah, just like disobedience that led to um yeah yeah led to him using initiating use of force, you could say. Um,
Okay, so it's all very vague. You haven't given me a specific incident. Now, listen, I'm not trying to nag or criticize. I'm just pointing
mm,
that out. Maybe you genuinely can't
yeah,
remember, but you're giving me
yeah,
categories. Well, I used a cuss word
yeah,
without knowing why, or I didn't follow
yeah,
advice, or something like that. So those are
yeah.
categories. I'm just curious about specific instances that you remember. I mean, I assume that you remember at least one time of being hit because you remember being hit, right? Not as a category,
Mm,
but as an instance.
yeah, yeah. Um, another okay. So another thing I remember is when I got in trouble at school one time for like yeah for being rude at school. Like, I think I said a rude word at school to like a teacher, and then I remember when I came home yeah he got really mad um and yeah that and yeah he shouted and yeah, it's not the best memory possible, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that was one of the times that he struck me.
Okay, so you got in trouble for using a bad word at school, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what the word was?
uh I pretty sure, like, I think this is when I was again approximately 7 8 years old, and I think that was around the time I learned the F word. um and yeah, I used that, and like it was weird because like a lot of the time, like, and I think it happened with this as well. Like someone told me at school that it wasn't a swear word, that they told me, oh, it's like a really nice word you can use, and because I'd never heard it before, I was naive, and I think I just used it, and yeah, that led
Oh,
to
yeah. Like, just for those who don't know who are listening to this later, truly half of British fucking society is about setting up younger kids to get in trouble. That's all that the older kids seem to be obsessed with doing. I'm not exactly sure why, but I mean, I
yeah,
was the youngest kid in my boarding school in England. And
mm,
yeah, that's all they do is they just
yeah,
set you up to try and get you in trouble as much as
yeah,
humanly possible. It's some weird fucking sadistic bullshit to go on.
yeah,
But it's very common, right? And everybody knows that if you're younger, that the older kids are going to try and screw up your life in some way by causing you to innocently get into trouble, right?
mm, yeah. I definitely experienced that. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
you drop an F bomb at school, and the school what wrote a letter to your dad or something like that.
Yeah, I believe at that specific time so I think I was so like I think it's like like it's slightly different to detention, but it was like I was like taken out of class, and I remember at that school I was like forced to stand outside the principal's office, just like stand there in the corridor. I couldn't even sit down. Like you were just forced to
Well, you know why
stand
that
there.
is, right?
So oh, as there's like a sort of humiliation, make an example of you kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's all those kids who,
Yeah.
ooh, he's in trouble. Like you just put it out there. It's
Yeah.
like being in the public stocks. It just shows that
Yeah.
you socially screwed up
Yeah.
and you're being punished, and it gets it
Yeah.
gets the other slaves in the school to mock you and so on, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
All right. So you were
And,
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, sorry, and then yeah, then I was sent home, and then I was like, yeah, like my parents were like informed they may have been called up by the school, but like when they got home, and my mum would always you know she wouldn't always she would never like kind of like have my back, like she would go along with like if my dad was angry at me,
Yep.
she would go along with it, and maybe at some point she would, if he was like about to like throw something, she would maybe be like, "Right, that's enough, calm down,"
Well,
kind of
that's
thing.
just because the police could be called and you might end up in hospital. That's not to do with protecting you. That's
Yeah,
just to do with protecting herself,
yeah,
right?
right, right.
All right. So let's try. I
Yeah,
want you to understand. Sorry, again, to sound like I'm lecturing, but I want you to understand why you don't hold your parents accountable. Because it's not a flaw. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's helpful. It's why you're here. It's how you survived. So
mm,
I want you to pretend to be your dad, and you can really get into it. Just dig in, and we call these role plays, right? So
yeah,
I'll pretend to be you at the age of say 7,
yeah.
and your dad. I come home. Your dad's there. He's got the message from school, and what does he say?
He says, like, what? We can swear, right? So,
Yes.
well, actually, he wouldn't have sweared at this point, but he would have like just said it like in a really like loud, angry way. Being like, yeah, what have you done here? Like, what is wrong with you? Are you some kind of idiot? That's he would say something
Okay,
like
so
that.
so we just do that. So you're not putting much heart and soul into it, but we'll get there, right? So
Sorry.
try it
Yeah,
again, but
yeah,
but with feeling.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's weird. I don't really shout much. Okay, I'll try my best. Right, what is this? Are you some kind of idiot? Why did you do this?
Sorry, do what, Daddy?
I just got this message from school saying that you were going around swearing. What is wrong with you? Are you some kind of idiot?
I don't know what you mean. Like I said the F word. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
why would
do
you
you know?
say that?
Hang on,
Why
slow
would you
down,
say
Dad.
that?
Take a breath.
No, no, you
Hang
can't
on,
do that.
Dad. Take a breath. Why do you think I said the F word?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Oh,
What's
good.
wrong with
Okay,
you?
so good. Now you're asking a question rather than just insulting me. Okay, so the reason I said the F word was because I was told by the older kids that it was not a swear word. In fact, it was a fine and good word that was socially acceptable.
Sorry, I'm gonna break character here. I didn't. I wouldn't have had the
No,
space to have
no,
said that.
we're doing a
Yeah.
complete fantasy exercise. This is not what you should have
Okay.
done or anything, right? I'm
Yeah.
telling you why you didn't do this.
Mm.
Right. So
Yeah.
you would say, look, I said fuck
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
told that it was a good word, like soft or rain or cloud.
Mm.
Right. And I've heard lots of adults use it and they don't get in trouble. So
Well, adults can use it because we're older and we know what it means, and children need to show more respect.
okay, so what you're saying, Dad, is that I should have known that that was a bad word.
Yes, because now what
Right.
people
So wasn't it
gonna
your
think of you?
job to tell me and to teach me?
You shouldn't have known that. You should. Yeah. Well, I sort of don't have an answer to that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the question.
Um.
Like, Dad, you're getting mad at me for not knowing something that it was your damn job to tell me.
Mm.
You need to get a grip on your temper and start asking some questions. This is not a failure of me at the age of 7. This is a failure of
Mm.
you at the age of 37. You should have taught
Mm.
me. I mean, are you trying to tell me, Dad, that when you were a kid, no older kids or no other kids ever tried to get you in trouble by lying to you? Ever? Never
Yes, well,
happened.
I did get in trouble because that happened, and my dad hit me, and I'm glad he did because now now that's how I learned. That's how I learned. That's how I grew up.
Okay, fantastic.
My
Okay,
dad would hit
so
me.
I got it, Dad. I got it. So you had older kids lie to you and get you in trouble, right?
Yeah, and that's just part of growing up.
Okay, so why didn't you teach me? Well, first of all, if it's just part of growing up, why are you yelling at me? And secondly, if you knew that kids would lie to me to get me in trouble because they lied to you to get you in trouble, why wouldn't you warn me about that?
Because because I went through this with my dad when I was raised. You got to learn to respect your elders this way, and sometimes that will involve being disciplined. And
What? Hang on, hang on,
yeah,
hang on, hang on. So, are you saying it's a good thing that I was lied to and got in trouble?
yes, because that's how you'll learn.
Okay, so if it's a good thing and that's how I learn, why are you yelling at me? I mean, if I studied math and learned how to do math better, you wouldn't yell at me because that's how you learn. Right? So I'm not sure why you're yelling at me and calling
Well,
me an
it's
idiot.
to make
Hang on,
you
Dad,
it's to
I'm
make
not finished. I don't know why you're yelling at me when you tell me that this is a good and necessary way to learn things. Why would you be yelling at me if it's necessary and good?
because you need a short, sharp shock to so that you know you learn quickly and you're not going to forget. You're not going to forget when I hit you, so that you'll know to fall in line later. And then if you don't want this to happen again, you will learn, and you will stop stop doing this, and you will show some respect.
Sorry, respect for who? Am I supposed to respect you who knew about a significant danger and failed to warn me about it? How am I supposed to respect that? Isn't your job as a parent to help me avoid disasters? I mean, you made me wear a helmet while I was biking. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just let me fall and hurt my head and then I'd learn? Like, isn't your job as a parent supposed to be to help me avoid obvious dangers that you yourself went through?
Uh, yeah, I mean, this is like again a kind of breaking character because I just can't really defend this
No, you
position.
can't. I sorry, I understand
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah.
so what would your dad do if you proved him wrong?
He would just get mad.
Yeah, he would get
He would just
more
get
and more
angry.
angry, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And so you can't hold your father responsible because he escalates in rage.
yeah. Right. So I would just apologize and get really
No,
scared
no,
and
I get that.
try not to do it
And
again.
if
Yeah.
you were to
Mm,
say to your father, Dad, you are out of control of your temper, this is embarrassing.
mm,
You're like a toddler. You just rage like a crazy person, like a baby, like a toddler. You need to take a
mm.
breath and try and get control of your anger because this is dangerous and scary and weird. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you screaming at a 6-year-old? Like, you've gotta show some self-control. You've gotta I really want to respect you,
Um,
Dad. I really, really want to respect you. But when you
uh,
just lose your temper and like you're like a rabid animal or like some toddler having a tantrum, I'm embarrassed. Like, please stop being so ridiculous. What would he do?
he would he would say that it was my fault that he got that way, and he would actually now some of this is coming back, right? So it would get into like what you call like victim blaming, and he would actually be like, oh, like I remember at one time he would say like, oh, like I'm not enjoying eating my dinner now because you made me so angry.
Okay. And then I would
Um,
say, but Dad, aren't you the one who's supposed to be in charge? Are you saying that your
mm,
entire emotional life is run by a 6-year-old little kid? Like you're not in charge, you're
mm,
not in control. What are you like? You're the child and I'm the parent. Like, aren't you supposed to have some self-control?
mm. Well, I try to, but you're just so difficult. You're just so difficult to raise, and I've tried to do everything right for you. As parents, me and your mum,
Hang on,
we've given you everything
Dad,
you wanted.
take another breath. You're just going off on another rant here. So let's get back to me being sent home because I said the word fuck, right? So if you're upset because I swore, then the thing to do would be to teach me about swear words and teach me that older children will lie to get me in trouble so that I can avoid these problems.
Mm,
So it's like if you don't maintain your car and then you complain that your car is so difficult to work and run because it keeps breaking down, right? What would people say to you if you failed to change the oil and get the maintenance and so on? And then you said, well, this car just is so difficult to run. What would people say to you?
It's your own fault.
Yeah, you didn't maintain the damn thing. So you can't blame the car if you're failing to be proactive to maintain it. And you can't blame me for being difficult to raise when you knew I was heading into trouble with swear words and older kids, and you failed to do a goddamn thing to warn me and to help me. Right? That's like not bathe. That's like forbidding your child from bathing and then saying you're upset because your child is smelly. Like, this is ridiculous. Take some responsibility for your life. Please be the kind of father that I can respect.
What do I do about this now?
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So like, obviously this role play is kind of revealing quite a lot about.
Well, hang on. So let's play this out, right? What STEM did you take?
I took maths.
Maths. Okay. All right. So let's just talk about human evolution. So why don't children do this? And they don't. And they shouldn't. Why not? What happened? Let's go all the way back to prehistory, 50,000 years ago, when our genes were evolving, right? How difficult was it to not keep a child alive 50,000 years ago?
It was easy to not keep a child alive, right? They could be abandoned.
Give me the mechanisms. Yeah, give me the mechanisms by which a child could be not kept alive.
Abandonment, deprivation of resources, expulsion, just physical violence.
Yeah, failure to protect from predators and so on, right? And favoritism, like if you don't give the kid enough food and that kid gets sick, it won't have energy to fight the infection, whatever, right? So there's a million ways which, or you could just lose the child. I thought he was right behind me or whatever. I mean, there's so many stories in fairy tales of children being led out to the woods and abandoned there, right?
Yeah.
So, and step parents as well, right? Step parents are very dangerous. A lot of women would die in childbirth, and the new women would come along and not wanting to put resources into the man's kids with the previous wife because they've got no genetic investment. So there are countless ways in which children can be unalived throughout our evolution, right?
Right.
Now, if you stand up for yourself and point out the hypocrisy and immaturity of a parent who is violent and aggressive, what does that do to your odds of survival?
Diminishes them.
Well, it almost eliminates them in many ways, right? So the reason why children didn't do what I did in the role play and call the parent out for immaturity, aggression, hypocrisy, and generalized bullshit is because we are dependent upon our parents' goodwill for survival. And if our parent, as most parents are, or certainly were, almost all parents would be irrational, entitled, narcissistic, aggressive, violent. And I mean, we're just talking about maybe Europe. I mean, how well did you do in Central and South America under the Aztecs, right, who regularly sacrificed a couple of thousand kids to their gods? They certainly didn't sacrifice the popular kids, right?
Right.
So childhood survival was razor thin in almost all of our evolution. And so you could not piss off your parent. You simply could not. Or to put it another way, as you know, the children who pissed off their parents and challenged their parents' immaturity and irrationality had a much lower survival rate. So those genes get weeded out. Those habits get weeded out pretty damn quickly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard of these experiments. There's a Russian researcher who took a bunch of foxes and within a couple of generations, by breeding the most aggressive foxes with the most aggressive foxes, produced a whole lineage of very aggressive foxes, and then by breeding the most peaceful and friendly foxes with the most peaceful and friendly foxes, developed a whole lineage, like two different creatures that would attack when they saw humans, and creatures that you could pet easily. That's just in a couple of generations.
Selective breeding.
Yeah, selective breeding. Yeah. And so humanity has been selectively bred for compliance with parental anti-rationality. And so your ancestors and my ancestors complied, and that's why we're here. And this is why you give your parents excuses, because you had to grow up giving them excuses, because if you didn't give them excuses, you feared, and historically rightly so, that you would not survive.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we have the option, which really never existed before in human evolution, we have the option to change our tribe. Right? So in most of human evolution, if you challenged the anti-rationality, the craziness, the immaturity, the hypocrisy of the tribe, they would just expel you. Or nobody would mate with you, or they'd ship you off to a monastery, or they wouldn't protect you, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to challenge the hypocrisy of the tribe is very, very, very new. To be able to successfully challenge it, I mean, I'm sure you heard about what happened to me in 2020 when I was deplatformed from 15 or 20 different platforms, all very rapidly, and that's because I was going against the anti-rationality of the tribe. And normally, that would have got me killed, or at least expelled, and my genetics would have died off, or whatever it is, right? And even if I'd had kids, my kids would be very unlikely to survive, and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you have a survival mechanism called comply, and do not hold your parents responsible, because if you hold immature people responsible, they simply escalate until you are in fear of your life. And I'm not kidding about that. Like, genetically deep down, we are afraid of dying. I mean, even now, I really think that a lot of kids get killed. They call it SIDS or whatever it is, right? But so that's why I just wanted you to sort of understand that that's why you have a tough time holding your parents responsible. Is it provokes death anxiety in us to hold our parents responsible for the bad things that they've done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Okay, so your parents were capable of doing better, right? They were capable of being more rational. Your father was capable of learning better social skills. I mean, there was nothing physically wrong with his brain, right?
No.
Right. So then the question is, well, why didn't he? Well, in general, people don't learn better social skills because what negative consequences do they face for not learning better social skills? Well, none really, because of the aforementioned issue where children have to obey their parents or die. Like, we can't, there's no power greater than that of parents in the world, because parents shape your thinking, right? And your parents have total control over children in a way that, even abusive husbands or wives, they don't have total control over the kids, right? The spouses can leave. They have legal independence. They have often a lot of support for leaving abusive relationships and so on. So, yeah, it's a whole different planet with regards to parental power as opposed to any other power in the world. So then the question becomes, and I'm always quite fascinated by this, is what does it mean to say that you were autistic? And tell me why you think that diagnosis was made.
So it was made when I was very young, and I definitely knew, but I wasn't.
Sorry, knew what?
I definitely knew. I could tell even at the time, even as a child, I could tell that I wasn't hitting the social developmental milestones, but most other people my age were. And yeah, I think my parents just told me that they'd taken me to see a psychiatrist when I was a toddler, and I'd had some assessments, and they told me that I was autistic when I was about 7 years old. They left it until that long to tell me. And so could you be more specific about what your question was? You said about
Well, you said that you weren't hitting
what it means.
the developmental goals or milestones, right?
Yeah, I wasn't socializing properly, and it took me a lot longer, than, like, in terms of, like, verbal development, that was actually quite normal, but in terms of most other things, like being able to, like, kinda, like, dress myself and, like, tie my shoelaces and ride a bike, and lots of those things, that took me a lot longer, and, my body language has always been very different to other people's, and I get very self-conscious about that, and I think it's put other people off, like, just, like, subtle things, like, like, walk with a mouth gait, and, of course, eye contact is very, very difficult for me. So, like, I meet a lot of the classic criteria for autism, so I definitely can see why I was diagnosed, at the time.
Okay, now they say diagnosed, but it's
Mm.
not quite the same as being diagnosed with cancer or being diagnosed with an infection or something like that, right? Because the diagnosis is simply a description of behaviors.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
I
let's
mean,
talk.
it's, like, on
Sorry, go ahead.
paper. So sorry, yeah, I mean, like, on paper, like, it's official, but yeah, no,
Well,
I definitely can tell you what you mean by the
well,
distinction.
on paper, slavery
Right.
was official. I mean, who cares about on
Yeah,
paper? And look, I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
trying to say that autism doesn't exist, of course, right? I mean, there
Mm,
are people who have, severe disabilities and so on. And I'm not trying to
yeah.
sort of say that that's not real. Now, but let's look at something like eye contact. Is
Mm.
there any other explanation as to why you might have difficulty maintaining eye contact other than something like autism?
Something does come to mind. So, yeah, I think it's to do with, what we've talked about a bit, right? About the compliance thing. I think it's because at least to me, it feels like eye contact can represent, like, it's like kind of like being assertive, right? Like, kind of like being, like, confident and kind of almost like, and I've always kind of implicitly thought of it as somewhat, yeah, like, almost like confident, maybe even slightly confrontational, slightly intimate, right? And so maybe it's just because yeah, I'm quite scared of other people. To that's like, yeah, I'm not sure another way to put it. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, okay, so let's look at the more primitive life forms, apes and maybe criminals and so on, right? So, is eye contact when somebody is threatening you? What does lowering your eyes versus maintaining eye contact? What does that represent?
Maintaining eye contact with me, like, you're ready to engage, kind of like you're ready, like, if there's gonna be, like, a fight or something, you're ready for it, right? Whereas, um, whereas averting your gaze, right, like, yeah, lowering your eyes, like you said, looking away, it's kind of to signal that, well, like, that you're not a threat, I suppose, but like,
Yeah,
you're gonna, like,
submission.
comply.
Yeah,
Yeah,
lowering your eyes would signal submission, right?
yeah, yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Mm.
so with regards to your father, and we can talk about your mother a little bit more later, but with regards to your father, he seems to have been extraordinarily aggressive.
Yeah. I suppose I've always, like, compared it to the extremes, it's like, oh, I was never, like, severely injured or anything, so it's like
Well, that's
I've always
because you
tried to, like,
submitted.
cope with. Yeah, yeah, I've always tried to
I
cope
mean, that's
with it,
like, sorry to take an
Yeah,
extreme example,
yeah.
that's like a woman who says, well, I wasn't stabbed by the rapist who held a knife to my throat because I complied, and then saying, well, maybe there wasn't that much danger, but it's like, that's because you complied.
Yeah, mm. And I guess, yeah, man, this is really, really, really deeply ingrained, 'cause can I tell you what just went through my head then?
Of course.
Like, it was this idea that, like, I almost, like, almost making excuses for him, like, giving him the benefit of the doubt, but, like, "Oh, he even if I hadn't complied, he might not have escalated." That's what came to my mind
Yes,
just
but
then.
but you understand that from an evolutionary standpoint, children can't take that risk.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So the idea, and I hear what you're saying, right? So the idea is like, well,
Mm.
I mean, he wouldn't have strangled me. He wouldn't have thrown me down the stairs. He wouldn't have beaten me and broken an arm or anything like that, right? But
Yeah.
evolutionarily speaking, you can't take that chance.
Mm.
let's say there's only a 10% chance that your father is going to escalate. Well,
Mhm.
why would you take that chance? Compliance is 100% he won't escalate, and
Yeah.
rebellion is a 90% chance he won't escalate. But of course,
Right. So it's like a negative Pascal's wager. Sorry.
yeah, for sure. I mean, no organism is going to willingly take on a 10% chance of self-destruction when the alternative is perfectly viable.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just really wanted to sort of point that out, that your genes are making a rational calculation. Because also, if it turns out that he's just a paper tiger and is not really aggressive, if that's what turns out to be the case, then he has no authority at all going forward. Right?
Yeah.
Because the threat is not real. So he is likely going to escalate. And I think that the odds are far higher. I think it's 90% likely he will escalate. And if he escalates, see, if you comply, you can retain the semblance of will. If he escalates to the point of true brutality, then you get too depressed to even function, because then you realize that you're a complete slave and that he doesn't care about you. He only cares about your compliance. Does that make sense? Like, you don't want to find out how brutal and uncaring your parents are if they're violent, because it will just cause you to cease functioning. Like, you won't be able to get out of bed because it's like, oh my God, I've got another 15 years of this or another 10 years of this. Oh my God. And then if you're too depressed because you realize how much of a slave you are, and let's say that women, when you're dating, respond to confidence, and you're really depressed and feel helpless, what does that do to your reproductive capacities and your sexual market value?
Well, it's very bad for it.
It's terrible. It's terrible. So there is no benefit. There is no benefit to fighting back. It's all downside.
Yeah.
Now, you, of course, know that you're being mistreated, because the whole purpose of yelling at kids and calling them names and hitting them is to cause them to feel bad. So you feel bad, and so you know that your father and your mother is cruel, and society as a whole is accepting it, and in fact probably benefiting, like affirming it. So you can't pretend that you don't feel bad. So what's the only way to resolve the problem that your parents are repeatedly causing you great suffering? How do you resolve that without becoming catastrophically depressed? Because if you wake up and say, oh, my parents are just immature sadists and they're going to torment and lie and dodge, and they're going to blame me for things that they themselves are choosing, like, that's too depressing. And then, of course, you also threaten your own survival, because, and this is another thing to do with the eye contact, if you look at your raging father with the contempt and scorn he so richly deserves, you don't say anything. You just look at him like, yeah, right, old man. Jesus, what a pussy. Well, how sad is that? A grown man can't even control his own temper and blames a 6-year-old for his emotional state. That's cucked and pathetic. Pathetic, the way that the British people say. So if you look at your father when he's raging at you with scorn and contempt, with full knowledge of how immature and petty he's being, what happens then? You don't say anything. He goes nuts. So you can't even look at him with scorn. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and that's really dangerous, right?
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. So you have a paradox, as we all have, for the most part, when we're growing up and so on. So you have a paradox, which is your parents are treating you very badly, and they know that they're treating you very badly. And you can't get too depressed about it, because then you're not attractive to females. You can't look at them with scorn and contempt, because they will escalate even further and you'd be in more danger, and all of the myriad ways that children can be unalived throughout our evolution. So what is the only real solution to this problem? That you can't hold them responsible, and you can't get too depressed at their cruelty.
You just have to comply, right? And
Sure, but I mean, that's the practical thing. But what's the mindset? Because if you comply with full knowledge of how brutal and immature they are, well, you can't allow yourself to have the knowledge of how brutal and immature they are, because if you look at them with that knowledge, then they will further escalate because they will be stung by your contempt, right?
So then I suppose that just leave the option of having to gaslight yourself into believing that is acceptable and it's justified.
Well, I think so. So what you have to do is, I don't know if you've ever known someone, or maybe you've been that person, where they get annoyed at the weather.
Annoyed at the weather.
Like you go out for a hike, it starts pouring, and they're like, oh, come on. I mean, I checked the weather this morning. They said it was going to be sunny all day. This is ridiculous, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, or like if I'm like in traffic or something, like, and yeah, something like trivial but out of my control happens. It's inconvenient.
Right.
Like, yeah. I am that person sometimes. So
I think we all are to some degree, right?
Yeah.
So what you have to do to survive all of this, and this is why earlier I said weather happens, human beings make choices, is you have to turn your parents' behavior into something like the weather or traffic or something like that, right? Like that makes no sense to rage and rail against traffic or the weather or whatever, right? Like if you've maintained something, I don't know, like you turn on your computer and it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
You just get that BIOS message or something like that, right? Now, that can be a little bit frustrating, but you don't rage at the computer, right? There's this funny John Cleese show called Faulty Towers, where he's in a hurry and his car won't start, and he rips up a small sapling and he starts hitting the car with the tree. And that's funny because it's crazy, right? You don't hit a car because the car is not acting against you in a chosen way.
No, but that's still a relatable kind of emotional response, I think, to a lot of people.
I remember when I was in my teens, I had an Atari 520 ST, and it had a mouse with a rollerball, and the rollerball would regularly get gummed up or stuck with hair or something like that, and you'd have to thump the mouse, and it just got it's so frustrating because there was no keyboard shortcut. So you had to just use the mouse or you couldn't use the computer. And the mouse were expensive and I couldn't afford. And so I'd clean it and I'd tap it and it's just, it was so frustrating. And I think at one point I just threw the mouse across the room and I broke the mouse. And that was my way of saying I need a new mouse. I got a new mouse and it was fine for a while. But it was not, the fact that you have these laser mice now is fantastic, right? So you have to turn your parents into things like the weather that just happens. The weather doesn't make choices, and nobody gets depressed, really, about the weather and feels that the weather is personally targeting them, right? And if in England, right, summer comes on a Wednesday, if it rains all week, nobody sits there and says, the weather gods are trying to depress me. So you view your parents like the weather, that you have to navigate it and you have to work around it, but you don't blame the weather. It's just happening, which is why we say it's raining. We don't say, I'm upset that the clouds are trying to screw up my day by raining on me personally.
Sometimes it does feel like that, though. And but
sorry,
we
you
know
mean the weather or
rationally.
parents?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, sometimes it does feel like, like minor, like inconveniences throughout the day. Like it does feel to me, like sometimes it does feel like maybe this is like it's like I know logically, but it's not. But sometimes it does feel like, oh, this is typical. This is like what happens. This is this is just my life. Like I'm cursed or something.
Oh, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I don't know if you're still young, but when you get older, I mean, I've had years and years with no health issues, and then I had like 2 or 3 cluster, nothing major, but it was just annoying last year or whatever, right? And it's just like, oh, come on, right? Just one damn thing after another.
Yeah.
But it's just the random distribution, right? So although we may feel that way, and I think everyone does, we know that it's not rational.
Yeah, logically, right? Yeah, we know.
Like everybody's been in a hurry, and you keep getting red light after red light, right, at the traffic lights.
That's like in Meet the Fockers, like the first movie, right? I think that happens.
Yeah, in fact, my
Yeah.
father had a friend in Africa who'd managed to get hold, if I remember the story rightly, there was ambulances had a special transmitter that would change the lights so that they could go through the lights more quickly, and he'd managed to get a
That's
hold of
quite cool.
one and never had to stop for a red. It was really quite a wild story. But yeah, so
Wow.
there are times when we're in a hurry and we keep getting yellow light or red light, and it just feels like the universe is conspiring against us. Sure. I mean, but we also know that it's not rational.
Mm.
Right. So although we have these feelings, we don't feel that they're true. We don't feel that the gods of the traffic lights are personally thwarting us in malevolence. Right.
Mm.
It's frustrating. Right. But of course, what we have to say is the fault lies not with the stars, but with ourselves. Right. The fault lies not with the traffic lights, but the fact that we left too little time for our destination. Right.
Yeah.
So when you talk about your parents early in the conversation, and you said, it happened, or hitting happened, and my parents were unable to do this, that, and the other. You are treating them as physics, as facts of nature.
Mm.
When people gain weight, if they're rational, they don't blame gravity, right?
Yeah.
Right. Hopefully, they blame their eating too much or not exercising enough or some combo, right? So I would say that you have to turn your parents into the weather, into things that have a negative impact on you, but not things that are directly willed against you. Well, they didn't know how to do it. You've heard these excuses a million times on these call-in shows, right? They were doing the best they could with the knowledge they had. My father himself had a bad childhood. He just wasn't aware. He didn't know. So you are removing human consciousness and choice from the equation, which turns your parents into a kind of deterministic weather. And that way, you don't get too depressed, right? Because it's not personal to you. They're not choosing it consciously any more than the clouds are choosing consciously to rain upon your parade, right?
Yeah.
And women, of course, will sometimes do this. Some men too, but women a bit more, if they plan an outdoor wedding day, and it turns out that it's raining all day, they're frustrated and upset, which, is understandable, but we don't take it personally, like the weather is not out to get us, right? So you turn your parents into a kind of weather, and that relieves you from the stress of holding your parents responsible, which is dangerous, right? But the problem is that you slowly become weather too.
Right.
Because if adulthood and maturity is having no responsibility and just being a domino of blind reactive forces, then it's almost impossible. In fact, logically, it is impossible to will things in your own life. If your parents are weather, how old were your parents when they had you?
They were quite young. They were in their early 20s.
Okay. And you said you're a little closer to 30 than 20, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is that you are trying to fight your way out of the weather system, so to speak, at about the same age as you were when you first became conscious of your parents' choices. So you would have been about 5 when they were your age at the moment, right? Maybe 5 or 6.
Right.
And 6 was one of the earlier memories that you had. I don't think it's a coincidence that you are fighting to free yourself of passivity at the same age as your parents were when you first had the giant defense called, "My parents are passive. My parents are like the weather. They're not making malevolent choices." Right? That's why earlier I was saying, if you said my father did not have emotional skills. Well, if I steal a plane and I don't know how to fly a plane and I crash the plane, and I say, well, the reason I crashed the plane was because I don't know how to fly a plane, is that reasonable?
No, of course not. Yeah.
Right.
Of
So
course not.
saying that my parents lack emotional skills is not an excuse as to why they were volatile.
No. It explains it, right? It's not
Well,
justification.
it's the hypocrisy. I actually just did a show this morning where I've said I don't generally, at first at least, I don't hold people to moral standards they have not espoused themselves. So if you were to get really angry and shout at your father, what would he say?
Oh, he would be like, why are you doing that? Calm down.
How dare you? That's so
Don't get angry."
disrespectful, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then he knows that shouting at people is aggressive and disrespectful.
So he's a hypocrite.
Right. So I don't hold people to UPB or peaceful parenting or some abstract standard that has yet to be invented. That would be unreasonable, right? That would be like saying an 18th century doctor was a terrible doctor because he didn't prescribe antibiotics. It's like they weren't around yet, right? So with your father, if he says aggression is good, then he should welcome your aggression. But what he says is aggression is good for me, but bad for you. Now, in other words, most people, if you were to say, who is more mature, a 30-year-old or an 8-year-old, what would people say?
30-year-old.
Right. Now, if you were to say, who is more likely to have control over their emotions, a 25-year-old or a 4-year-old?
25-year-old.
Right. So if your father loses his temper and says, I can't keep my temper because of external circumstances, then he should have no problem with you losing your temper, your temper, because you're over 20 years younger than him. It would be like me saying, I can't lift 500 pounds, but my kid, who's 7, should be able to lift 500 pounds. I can't keep my temper, but my kid, who's 7, better be able to keep his temper. I, with full brain maturity and wisdom and independence, cannot hold on to my temper. I lose my temper. I choose to bully. And it is always a choice, right? And so I assume that your father did not shout at you and or hit you when you were in public. In front of a policeman or a security guard, or did he?
Oh, well, no, of course not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was perfectly able to control his temper when it suited him. He was perfect. Like you say, he lost his temper. Nope. Losing your temper is a choice. Did he ever shout at a policeman?
No.
Did he ever threaten to hit anyone in authority?
No, I mean,
of course,
yeah, not seriously. Like, obviously, like lamenting, like government or whatever. But
no, I get that, but
yeah, just casual.
He did not act out his anger against anyone who had power over him. Did he ever threaten to hit his boss if his boss didn't do what he wanted?
No.
Did he ever shout at his boss and call him terrible names if his boss didn't give him the raise he wanted or the promotion he wanted?
No.
Right. So he's perfectly capable of keeping his temper. In fact, most of the times that he got upset, he kept his temper like the most Zen monk you could think of, because he did not. So he never lost his temper. He chose to get angry because he was in a position of power and authority. He could bully you and get away with it. He couldn't bully his boss or a policeman or a security guard or a flight attendant or a border crossing guard or whatever it is, right? So he couldn't bully those people and get away with it. So he was perfectly compliant and did not lose his temper once in 50 plus years. However, when he can get away with it, then the restraints come off. He doesn't lose his temper. He gives it away by choice. He can always control his temper. So every time he loses his temper, this is why I said earlier, it's not like epilepsy, because people have epileptic attacks no matter where. If that's what happens, it just happens. They can't stop it. So he didn't lose his temper like, oh, it's spilled over. It's like the bath water running too long. It just spills over. You can't stop it. It's like, no, he was perfectly able to control his temper anytime he wanted. As was my mother. She was violent as well, but never in public. In fact, she was very sweet in public. That's camouflage, right? So my mother was not out of her mind. She wasn't schizophrenic. She wasn't epileptic. She wasn't possessed, right? She made very specific choices to keep or lose her temper based upon the power differential in the environment. If she had less power, she would keep her temper, be sweet as sugar. If she had more power, she could yell and bully and threaten and hit. It is not anything but a choice.
I think you're right, and I definitely think that's something I've implicitly been, trying just to block out because.
And now you are growing into your parents' phase of life that you first began giving them excuses for. And now, as you gave excuses to your parents and turned them into the weather, now you feel like you don't have any directness or control or authority in your own life. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say that's roughly true.
Right. So if you are not willing to get angry at your parents, you're not going to have any willpower in your life. Because getting angry at your parents is saying, no, damn it, they chose to be cruel. They chose to be mean. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't dominoes. It wasn't determinism. It wasn't because my father had had a bad day or had a headache or I was being difficult or, mom wasn't giving him any or he'd been yelled at by his boss or he'd had a bad childhood. None of those things is causal. It's all a specific choice. To be cruel, to be mean, to be difficult, to be unpleasant, to be hostile, to be sadistic, to frighten your children. That's an absolute choice. And I have bottomless contempt. I have bottomless contempt for bullies as a whole. But the big, brave, fucking moral heroes who only bully their own little children are the saddest fucking specimens on the planet. Big, tough guy when he's facing down a 7-year-old little boy. Big, tough guy. But with his own boss or anyone in authority, he's a cringing, toady vermin.
Yeah, in fact, I've always thought like you actually can be a bit of a simp sometimes, and
Sorry, a bit what?
in public, a bit of a simp, like a suck up, kind of
Sure.
especially to like women, like female family members and stuff. He's always like really like
doesn't yell at them, right?
Sickly sweet, kind of. Sorry,
doesn't yell at them, doesn't hit them.
No. Oh no, that never.
Right. So, what's your relationship like with your parents now?
It's I suppose like I've tried to, like I've tried not to like bring up these things and stuff. Like I've kind of talked around the edges of it really, like I've had to kind of talk about like I have tried to bring up a few like childhood problems, but I've done that mainly within the context of like like personal struggles, like like it was my, I was autistic and so that's why I like couldn't make friends or stuff like that, right? So but like are you talking more in practice, like how my like how close we are and stuff?
I love it when people go rubber bones. What do you think I mean?
Sorry.
When I say how's your relationship with your parents at the moment, what do you think I mean?
Yeah. I suppose you probably mean more in a sort of like emotional way, right? Okay, assuming that's what you mean.
Oh, sorry. Do you think I mean financially, or like what do you think I mean?
Yeah, I would just like in like daily life kind of. But no, yeah. So okay, going with the first assumption. Yeah, like that there are topics that I just don't bring up, and the reason I don't bring them up is because I don't want to feel uncomfortable and stuff. And um, but like like overall, like I'd say it's better, slightly better with my mum than with my dad. Because I think even now like I am just quite scared of my dad, to be honest.
Is he
Even
still
though like
yelling?
yeah, occasionally. I mean, I do spend less time around him.
Okay, so hang on. Sorry,
now
let
than when
me.
I was.
Sorry to interrupt. Remind me how old you were when you were diagnosed with autism.
I was 3.
3. Okay. Now I'm no expert on autism, so please correct me where I go astray. But isn't autism? Doesn't it have something to do with being overstimulated, with an inability to reduce or manage general stimulation sometimes?
Yeah, sorry, starting a bit. I do have some of those symptoms. Yes.
Okay. So your father, did he think that the diagnosis of autism was just new age bullshit, or did he think that it was real and true?
Somewhere in the middle. I remember when, like, when he first like talked to about me, he said he thought it was like he talked about it quite positively actually. Like he said like, oh, this is the gift. This is like why you're like doing, you're doing okay academically in school, and you're going to be really smart when you're older. And but I think it's like he's much more like he tries to emphasize like the positive aspects of it as being, like privileges I have,
Okay.
like, oh,
But
I can learn quicker.
does he accept that people with autism often are easily overwhelmed by external stimuli?
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't something he's super well aware of, but we have talked about it a bit recently actually.
No,
We've
because
had a
look,
good conversation.
when you find out your kid is diagnosed with autism, your father
Mm.
is I assume, an intelligent man.
That's actually something I was going to mention. Wh- so and intelligence can be like, different. It depends, like kind of it can be difficult to kind of pinpoint, say whether someone's intelligent or not. But
Well, no, hang on.
I will say that
Degrees of intelligence
yeah,
are different. Intelligent, I simply mean that he's, somewhat above average in IQ. It would be, and it's not necessarily true, but it would be unusual if you were very smart and your father was like IQ 85. That would be
well, this is really,
unusual.
yeah, I know, right? But there are a few things that actually make me doubt his intelligence. So I'm so like just so he he's very he always struggles with like reading and writing and like even like basic maths. Like he will like he'll misspell. He struggles reading. Sometimes he'll like ask me to like help him with like a really simple calculation, and it can sometimes it does sometimes feel like, again, I don't know if that's another like a separate problem he has, why those
What does he,
problems then, but
sorry, in what field does he work?
so he works in like a manual labor kind of job. So it's like I guess like tradesman. If you know what that
Is it like
means?
skilled labor or like ditch digging?
Uh I'd say it's like semi-skilled labor. It's slightly more skilled than like ditch digging.
Okay, and
Yeah, so
does he
it's
have
like
any
to do like
hobbies that
it's
might?
like construct.
Sorry, does he have any hobbies that might indicate intelligence? Like he's into,
Mm.
I don't know, cartography or chess, or um, does he do complicated card games? I mean, is there any indication of maybe more specialized forms of intelligence?
Nothing like that. Um, really. No.
Okay,
Um,
all right. And what about
yeah.
your mother?
In terms of like her
Uh huh.
intelligence or just in general. So yeah, I'd actually say like that. Yeah, she does show some like traits of intelligence. So yeah, she performed fairly well academically at school. If I recall, but yeah, she made it like at like towards the end of high school. Sorry if I'm stuttering too much.
No, don't worry about a
But
thing. Honestly, I'm enjoying the
yeah,
conversation. You're doing fantastically.
okay.
So yeah, take your time.
Great, thank you. So she chose to she might have been able to go on to further education, but she chose to go traveling. So I know like lots of people do a gap year, but she kind of wanted to like do one for like kind of more like semi-permanently, and she kind of found seasonal work and went on to do that. And that's actually where how she met my my dad.
Okay, so sorry, if your mother is reasonably, like say, average or above average intelligence, if your
Mm,
father is below average intelligence, what do you think was the attraction? Was your father very good looking, or was he very charismatic?
yeah.
And the reason, so when we were doing the role play, this is probably why you
Yeah.
struggled with the role play with your father, because you're a very intelligent young man, and your father, if he's not smart, it's really tough for smart people to role play less smart people, if that makes sense. It's
Mm,
impossible the other way, but it's very difficult to. If let's say your father is 90 and you are 120, then you're 2 standard deviations away. I'm not saying you are 120, it's probably higher, but I'm just sort of trying to give some rough. I mean, if you did STEM, it could be even higher.
Yeah, I understand. Normally distributed IQ.
2 standard deviations is really tough to have a theory of mind that includes 2 standard deviations different going down, because it's just tough. So why do you think your parents got together, and they're still together? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So why did they get together if your father is not particularly smart and your mother could have done higher education?
I mean, this is anonymous, so but I don't want to sound like I'm being slanderous or anything, but I know at the time they were both very hedonistic, very into partying, and I think they just both but they were both doing seasonal work, and just kind of lots of partying, and it was only and I think they just wanted to kind of travel together. From what I can tell, it was a bit of a situationship.
And was was your father attractive when he was younger?
I know. I would say fairly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could just be lust, right? Could just be lust.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this kind of brings me on to an important point I was going to make, because it was only several months into the relationship that they found out that my mum was pregnant.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're back to the weather again.
It's classic.
What do you mean they found
It's
out?
classic.
They had unprotected sex.
Yeah, I don't like to think about that.
It is very, very easy to not get pregnant.
I know.
Very easy to not get pregnant.
Yeah.
Find out. This is like somebody who's a smoker finding out, oh my gosh, I've got lung cancer. So it's very easy to not get. Women, there's 18 different forms of birth control. There's abstinence, oral sex, manual sex, whatever, right? And so there's so easy to not get pregnant that pregnancy, especially in the modern age, is a choice. So they didn't find out.
Yeah. Sorry, can I rephrase that?
Yeah.
My mum was irresponsible and hedonistic and took unnecessary risks, and as a result, she chose to take the risk to become pregnant with me.
And do you have any siblings?
Unplanned pregnancy. Yes, I do have a sister who is just over 3 years younger than me.
Okay, got it. All right, so the reason I'm asking all of this is I checked with Grok here. Do autistics struggle with overstimulation? Yes, says Grok. Many autistic people experience overstimulation. It's one of the most common and well-documented aspects of autism spectrum disorder. Yep. This is often tied to sensory processing differences. Autistic brains frequently process sensory input, sound, light, touch, smell, taste, etc., more intensely or have more difficulty filtering it out compared to neurotypical people. Now, so we're just looking at this, your mother and your father, upon receiving a diagnosis. I can do the word. I really feel I can. A diagnosis of their child at 3 of autism, would learn and read about autism, and they would look things up and so on, right? And 25 years ago, there was still an internet, and you could get books from the library for free, and they could ask their doctor or their experts, right? And so one of the things that would be told is, do not bombard your child with excess stimulation, right?
Yeah.
And what did your father do?
Exactly that.
Bombarded you with hitting, yelling, anger, right? So there are some people who have, I think it's called hyperacusis or something like that, where they hear sounds too loudly. And if you know that your child hears sounds too loudly, and then you grab your child's head and bellow in his ear, you're just a pure sadist.
When you put it that way.
No, seriously. Yeah. I'm not kidding about this. That's just pure. You know that your child has a vulnerability, and you exploit that vulnerability to bully and get your way. Your father knew that overstimulation was torment for you, and he shouted and yelled and hit you.
The way I've always coped with this is just giving him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't know for some reason.
There's no excuse called he didn't know. It's your job to know.
Yeah.
Were you ever told this as a kid? Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah.
He had to know. He would have been told about it. He would have been told about the difficulties. He would have seen you flinch. He would have to read about it. And even if he doesn't read that much, his wife would have read about it. Your mother would have read about it and told him and said, listen, whatever we do, we have to recognize when we speak above our normal toning, he experiences that as shouting. When we're just a little bit louder, he experiences that as screaming. When we hit him, it's 10 times as bad because his brain has challenges reducing overstimulation and so on. And so your parents knew at the age of 3 that you were autistic, or that was the diagnosis, and then at the age of 6, your father is shouting, yelling, and hitting. That's wild. Right? That's like if your kid has a broken rib, and you want your kid to obey you, and you dig your fucking thumb into that rib. I mean, that's sadistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're hitting him where it hurts the most in order to control him.
Yeah, compliance.
Yeah, and it's like Room 101, and if you've ever read 1984, it's like the worst thing. They have to study you to figure out what the worst thing for Winston Smith, it was rats, for other people it's spiders, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So if you make all of these excuses, which again, I hope I've made a decent case that's a survival mechanism. You've made all of these excuses for your parents. You're saying they're not in control of their lives. If they're not in control of their lives, how can you be in control of your life? Because if you take decisive action and you start doing things and you reject passivity and you escape the curse of being the weather, as you become more powerful in your own life, your anger towards your parents will rise. Now that you're the age that their parenting really began to kick in, right? The age of 4 or 5, parenting really, parenting babies is pretty easy, and toddlers pretty easy. But when your kids start to have their own will and beliefs and thoughts and values in opposition to your own, which is healthy, of course, they're different people. So you are facing a crossroads. Do you will things and get angry at your parents by taking full responsibility for your life? Or do you make excuses for your parents, which puts you into the category of passivity, that things happen to you, that you're not in control of your life? Because if you're in control of your life in your mid to late 20s, your parents were in control of their lives in their mid to late 20s, in which case they did you wrong by choice. If your parents in their mid to late 20s, well, they did the best with the knowledge they could. There's no shortfall. There was no deficiency. They did what they did, and there's an excuse for everything. How are you supposed to will anything? You're now the same as your parents were at this age. You give them excuses, you cripple yourself.
Yeah.
The price of willpower, if raised by passive, self-pitying parents, the price of willpower is anger. Your parents are still playing the victim, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right. So if your parents are victims into their 40s and 50s, how are you supposed to escape passivity in your 20s? Right?
I have to reject that mindset they have. And
well, you don't have to, because there's just choices and consequences, right? You don't have to.
Yeah.
You can continue to make excuses for your parents, which crushes your own capacity for willpower in your own life. You can continue to do all of that. Absolutely. I'm just telling you, I can't tell you what to do, obviously. But what I can do is point out the choices and the consequences. That if you choose to keep making excuses for your parents, you will not have willpower and traction in your own life. It's just too much of a contradiction.
Yeah.
I'm fully in control of my life, but my parents were passive victims of circumstances. No, it's one or the other. Have you talked to your mother about the negative things that occurred for you as a child?
Only the things that weren't directly related to them. Like negative, being bullied at school and stuff like that. I've talked about.
Sorry, how is that not related to them?
Well, it's not like directly related to them, right? They weren't like the perpetrators.
What are you talking about?
Well, they weren't the ones like pointing and laughing at me at school, or whatever, because I got into trouble.
But why? I mean, there were some kids who were bullied and some kids who weren't bullied, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What did your parents do about you being bullied?
They would just kind of tell me things like, "Oh, just ignore them. They're just jealous." Like all those cliches.
Okay, so your
really.
parents did nothing really about you being bullied.
Well, no, I mean, I mentioned that, like, I was homeschooled for a while. That might have been something to do with it, although that was, like, too little too late. Like, by then, it had been going on for years.
When did the bullying
And,
start? How old were you?
it was about, like, kind of, like, around the earliest memories, really, like 6, 7 years old.
Okay,
Um,
so it could have started before
yeah.
then, but that's what you remember, right?
Yeah, so,
Okay,
yeah, basically as far back as I can remember.
so your parents did not do anything in particular that was decisive about you being bullied, right?
No.
Okay, and that's why you were bullied, because the bullies knew that you did not have a close and connected relationship with your parents,
Mm.
that you were helpless and unprotected. Or to put it another way, you were bullied at school because you were bullied at home. It is your parents' responsibility that you were bullied. It certainly can't be the bully's responsibility. Let's say you were bullied at 5 and the bullies were 6 or 7, right? You can't blame the bullies at 6 or 7, not directly or hugely, right? Because they're little kids too, right?
That's what I have tried to do,
Oh,
you
so,
know,
so your
I think.
parents are not responsible in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, but the bullies are responsible at the age of 6 or 7.
Mm.
So no,
Yeah, no, you're right.
uh, you understand that there is a direct causal relationship between being bullied at home and being bullied at school.
Mm. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Helplessness in the face of bullying is inculcated at home first, and the bullies are like vultures picking up the leftovers of the lion's meal.
Mm.
And they
Yeah,
know that
because
you're not
it's like
protected.
they can sense the weakness, right?
Well, weakness is a sort of judgment that's harsh on yourself.
Mm.
It wasn't that you were weak, it's that you were unprotected.
Mm.
I mean, lions will go for adult male zebras or baby zebras.
Maybe,
Yeah, of
right? So
course.
easier.
Right.
Yeah.
And they go for baby zebras, not because the baby zebras have some self created moral weakness, but because they're easier. They
Yeah.
can run less fast. They can't kick, right? So every time a lion goes for a zebra, it could get kicked in the jaw and, die a horrible, painful death of starvation and pain, right? And so, yeah, it's not. I mean, it's true objectively that the baby zebras are weaker, but it's not a moral judgment. They're just younger, right? So instead of saying weaker, which sounds like, oh, I was bullied because I was weak, which is a judgment against yourself, it's another form of self-bullying, is to say I was bullied because I was unprotected.
Yeah.
If your parents had been the kind of parents that you were really close with, and if the bullies had got the sense that if they tried bullying you, your parents would raise holy hell with the school, they would get the police involved, they would march over to the bullies' parents' places and demand prompt action and talk about the bullying and go to the newspaper if they had to. If your parents were ferocious in their protection of you, would you have been bullied?
Most likely not.
Well, no, not at all.
Mm.
Lions, if they have a choice between a baby zebra that is out in the middle of nowhere or a baby zebra that is surrounded by adult males and females, which are they going to go for?
The lone one.
Yeah, the unprotected one.
Right. Yeah.
The unprotected. Now, both baby zebras are equally weak. The only difference is that one is unprotected.
Mm.
I mean, the purpose of a lot of predation is to separate the weak from their protectors, right?
Yeah.
So you weren't weak. You were just unprotected. And so when you say, well, it wasn't, my parents had nothing to do with my bullying or something like that, I would strongly disagree. That your parents' indifference was the root cause of the bullying. And the fact that your parents also bullied you at home meant that you were radiating helplessness in the face of bullying when you were at school. And this is communicated through eye contact, through body language, through assertiveness, through confidence. Like, I was bullied at home and I just had this, I don't know, it's not something that I earned. It's just I had this odd confidence and gait and so on. So I didn't experience much bullying at all at school. I think I was bullied once or twice for pretty brief amounts of time, but I was just cocky as hell. And
Yeah.
I know it's also, did you do sports at all?
I did, yeah, a little bit, yeah. Like, you mean like team sports?
Well, any sports.
Yeah, I did. I was never very good at them for the most part, but it
Right.
was kind of
So
like
team
the thing you
sports
had to do.
is one of the best ways to be protected against bullying is to do sports, and in particular team sports, but any sports. Do you know why?
Because then it's like you're like a pack, right?
Well, you have a pack, you know how to work with a team, you have friends and teammates who are physically competent. And did your parents encourage you to do sports?
Yeah.
So they encouraged, but you just didn't want to, right?
I tried I know like in North America you call it soccer, right? But football, I tried like that, and it was like I wasn't very good at it. Like I just didn't have like I was like physically quite fit, but I didn't have like the hand-eye like coordination, like the motor coordination. And if anything, I feel like it backfired because I would like lose the ball and then the opposing team would score a goal and then like the team I was on would like resent me. Um and so I just never felt like I was very competent at those at those types of sports.
Okay. And when you were not good at sports, did your parents help you? Did they say, listen, let's go out, let's play footy, let's practice ball handling, let's, whatever it takes to get you to be decent at the sport?
Mm. Uh, I think they did a bit actually. But yeah, I think I was just got very demoralized, to be honest. And then I would like then they'd kind of be like, yeah, I suppose yeah, like it's partly my fault. I just kind of like give up really, and like then I try another one like rugby or
Okay, so hang on.
something like that.
So where did you learn about giving up?
Mm. I think if I look back to like to like that time, like it was just kind of like I think it feels like it was just some like a logical conclusion I came to, where it's just like if I'm not like if I'm not good at something, like what's the point in
Okay, have
trying?
you, sorry
Was
to interrupt, have you ever spent time around babies and toddlers?
yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Have you ever seen a toddler learning how to walk?
Yeah, it's shit at it, right, to start with.
And sorry?
So huh?
I didn't quite catch what you said. It's something.
Oh, I said, yeah, toddlers are shit at walking to start with, right?
Right,
Is that what you mean?
right.
Yeah.
And how fierce is their dedication and desire to learn how to walk?
Well, yeah, it is very, very fierce, right?
Right. So we couldn't survive as a species if we gave up.
No.
So where did you learn about giving up? Because your innate mental structure is to persevere no matter how tough.
Mm. I don't know where I learned to give up.
Okay.
I
The
y
first place to ask is, did you see your parents struggle to overcome obstacles no matter what?
Not particularly. No, I
Sorry,
suppose
that's kind
not.
of a weasel word as well. What does
Yeah,
particularly
yeah, sorry.
mean in this
Yeah,
context?
yeah. Like, did I see them struggle to overcome obstacles?
So, stupid example would be my daughter saw me have 15 years of work erased from the internet and then struggle
Mm,
to regain an audience, right?
mm,
Did I just say, oh, I'll just find something else to do, or I'm just going to be depressed for 6 months, or right? She saw me, and look, again, I'm not trying to put myself forward as some perfect guy or anything like that. Lord knows I've
yeah,
had my struggles, but she has seen me work to overcome obstacles
mm,
and to find a way to push on no matter what, because that's life. I mean, we have to push
mm,
on. I mean, what else are we going to do? Just go into a fetal position and give up? That's not what we do as a species. That's not what any animal does, really. So our default position is to struggle, to take on obstacles, and to overcome them, right? To take arms against a sea of
mm,
troubles and by opposing end them. That's sort of Hamlet's
yeah,
description of humanity, right? So,
mm,
in some manner, I mean, my daughter knows that I've given speeches with bomb and death threats. That
right,
the Charlie Kirk stuff, right?
Yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she's seen the videos of me marching with the communists into tear gas and so on. No, that was probably a bit foolhardy. So, maybe there's a moderation that I'm still working on. But she sees me overcoming obstacles, overcoming challenges. When I banged my knee really badly some years ago, and I went to rehab, and oh my gosh, it just took forever and ever. I just kept trying different things until I figured out what the problem was. I didn't just say, okay, well, I guess I'll just have to live with this limitation on mobility for the rest of my life. Or I'll figure something out. I'll find something to be able to move forward on. So, have you seen your parents struggle to overcome a limitation? Certainly not if your father is relatively content doing something slightly more difficult than digging a ditch for his whole life. He still struggles to overcome challenges. Oh, sorry. Does he say, I have trouble with reading and spelling, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make sure that I get good at this?
No.
No. Does he struggle to overcome his bad temper or his emotional immaturity or his lack of social skills? No. So have you seen your parents overcome obstacles? Because we are born with a grim, fierce, relentless desire to overcome obstacles. Otherwise, we'd be 20, still in a fetal position, being fed by a giant boob or something like that. We strive for independence. We strive for mastery. We strive to overcome obstacles. I mean, if you've ever seen, baby horses, the foals, right? They immediately try to stand up. They wobble. Right? They just have a fierce desire for mastery. So we're not born with like, oh, I guess I'm not that good at soccer. I guess I'll just avoid it. And like that comes from your environment. That's not innate to your nature.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Okay, let's just cut to the chase. If this makes sense, I don't want to take up your entire day. So, in my view, maybe this is harsh, and listen, you're the expert on your parents, so I completely defer to your experience. But your parents sound like failures as a whole. Your father never really amounted much to anything. He doesn't strive to overcome things. He doesn't have any self-criticism, really. He doesn't have any desire to improve even things that he's obviously bad at that are kind of basic, like reading and writing and spelling and so on. So, and we can say this is low intelligence. I mean, who knows, right? I don't know the man, but if I were to look at him as a whole, I would say he was pretty much a failure as a parent. He's been pretty much a failure in his, job, career. It's not even a career, just moving stuff around or whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And your mother is married to him and failed as a mother to protect her children and failed as a mother to an autistic child to make reasonable accommodations for those challenges and has remained married to a guy who's kind of a loser in life. And that's your parents. They are losers. They are failures as a whole. Now, we could say maybe they're not smart or whatever. Okay, fine, whatever, right? But nonetheless, that's your template. Is people who have incredibly low expectations of themselves or others. Because success, assuming the raw physical capacity, success is simply a matter of raising your standards. That's all it is. I try to do better shows and better shows every time. Like, I'm trying to make this the best show ever with the most insight and right, new ideas and all of that, right? So success is simply a matter of raising your standards. That's all it is. And your parents don't sound like they've raised their standards above that of your average amoeba. They don't have higher standards. They don't have aspirational goals. They don't try to improve. They just live in this placid water buffalo in mud kind of way, doing whatever feels like. It doesn't sound like they're any less hedonistic now than they were in their teens and 20s. So there's no progress, no raised standards. And without raised standards, you can't have humility. Because humility is, I can do better, I'm not there yet. And so no humility, no raised standards. And of course, free will is our capacity to compare proposed actions to ideal standards. And your parents don't seem to have any ideal standards. They don't seem to have any self-criticism. They're just kind of placid NPC, low-rent failure bots, so to speak. and you want to achieve more, right?
I would like to, like almost like, I suppose, advance beyond like where my parents got to in terms of, like I suppose like
So, but how can they help you?
financial. Well,
They have no experience
yeah.
in doing anything other than being fairly low rent failures. How
Mm,
can they help you? You're asking someone to teach you Polish who doesn't even know that Polish exists. How can they help you? How
mm,
can they do anything other than be in the way?
yeah.
I mean, if your parents sat you down and said, "Listen, son, you got a lot of potential. You got, we put a lot on hold for you to get well educated. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on with these low rent jobs? What's going on with this not dating?" Have they sat you down and said, "How can we help you be better able to achieve even reasonable levels of success in dating and career?"
No.
Right. So losers cannot help you win, especially when they don't even know they're losers. Like your parents could say, "Listen, we faffed up and we did drugs or hedonistic shit, and we pissed away our potential." That doesn't have to be you, right?
Mm,
I mean, they seem
yeah,
to be fairly
never
placid and
had.
content with where you are. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they've never really had, like, they've never really like directed me back, kind of anything like that, and
Well, how could they?
um, yeah, they couldn't. Yeah.
Sorry, you were about to say something else. My apologies.
No, I was gonna say, that they of course they can't, really, like you said.
Well,
Of
they
course they
can't
can't.
now because they've never developed those positive habits.
Mm,
Like a 90-year-old guy probably can't run a marathon if he's never exercised his whole life. Right. So,
mm,
yeah, they can't now as a result of prior choices. I mean, they could have cracked a book on parenting, right? I mean, I assume
mm.
that they wanted you to study for tests that you had, and parenting is the most important test, and that doesn't sound like they studied for it at all.
No, my mum flat out said to me, a few months ago, but, "Oh, I was just so young, I didn't know what I was doing as a young parent," like, and and at the time, I was like, I didn't say it, but I thought, like, well, actually, like, that's kind of your responsibility
Well, no, it's
to
not
have,
kind of.
um well,
Like
no, it is. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm
if
being
you
too
had
passive.
if you
It
had an
is, yeah.
exam and you didn't study for it and you said, "Well, I was just young, I didn't know what was going on with the exam," what would people
Yeah.
say?
Be like, that's no excuse.
"Well, you crazy?
Yeah.
You knew the exam was
Yeah.
coming. Why didn't you study?
Yeah.
Why didn't you learn something?"
Mm,
I mean, so if she says, "Well, I was young, I didn't know what was going on," it's like, I don't know what I mean, that's just too strange for me. I'm sure that if you had
mm,
said to your parents, "I got an F on a test at school because I just didn't bother to study," would they have said, "No, that's fine. I mean, you did the best you could with the knowledge you had. That's no problem."
mm.
What would they have said?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't quite catch that.
If you had failed an important test when you were in school and
Mm,
in say junior high school or whatever, and the message was sent home to your parents, "You got an F on this science test," and your parents said, "Well, what was going on?" And you said, "Oh, yeah, I just, I mean, I didn't study. I didn't know what was on the test. I mean, that I was just young." What would they say?
they would have been they would have been bewildered, and they would have been upset, and they would have, they would have probably been a bit mad at
Yeah.
me.
What do you mean you didn't study
Yeah.
for the test? Why are you so
Yeah.
blasé about it? What do you mean you didn't study for the
Yeah.
test and it's fine? You got to study for a test. That your
Yeah.
mom is like, well, it's infinitely more important being a parent than it is doing some stupid ass spelling bee in grade 10. And
Yeah.
your parents were like, no, it's fine. No, we just didn't know.
Mm,
We didn't crack any books. We didn't study for anything. We didn't learn anything. We didn't know anything. We just made mistakes because we didn't know. And it's like, and listen, I'm fine with that. I mean, in a weird way, at least it's not hypocritical. If you
mm.
failed to study for a test and your parents were like, yeah, that tracks, don't bother studying. Doesn't matter. Just do the best you can with the knowledge you have. You don't have to study for anything. But parents never say that, right? That's
No.
the hypocrisy that bothers me very deeply. The parents say, you have to study for some stupid-ass spelling test in grade 7, but we didn't have to crack a single book on how to be not shitty parents.
Mm. I think I've always implicitly, ever since I've been thinking about these types of things, I've always implicitly recognized that double standard.
The last question I have, who's the most successful person you know in your life personally?
To be honest, probably my granddad. Yeah, yeah, my grandpa,
Your grandpa on which side?
maternal.
Okay. So
Mm.
your mother's father is very successful.
Mm. Mm.
In what way?
He was just born in the 50s, and he started a business during an economic boom, and just became he essentially managed to buy up lots of like property, and I haven't gone into too much detail, but like yeah, he just yeah, he just became very financially successful.
And is he in
Um
your life? Is he alive and in your life?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a benefit of young parents, right? Okay,
Mm.
so has he ever sat down with you and tried to give you some advice on success?
Not really. I think, to be honest, but I think because of like my experience with my parents, I've always tried to kind of like keep other people at a bit of an arm's length. Because
No, no,
I
no.
guess
It's his
because
job. His job.
oh no,
It's his job,
no.
right? I mean, it's not up to you. He would see that you, as his grandson, are having trouble getting traction in the world, so he would make that a priority, right?
Yeah, I mean that would be nice.
But he hasn't.
No, like he's like kind of humble bragged about like, oh, like how like how things were for him back in like the 70s, when he was like, making loads of money or whatever. But yeah, he hasn't really given me any specific advice or anything like that.
Okay, has he given you unspecific advice? These words that just keep coming
Well,
up.
yeah, yeah. I think when I was younger, actually, like before I went to uni, yeah, he was like encouraging me to go to uni because he was like, because he would almost like play down his own success because like it involved a lot of hard work. And I think he saw like, like other people like going to uni because he never went. Like I was the first generation student in my family. Um, and I think yeah, like lots of people in my family have like regarded like going to university as like, oh, it's like what you should do, like, if you want to be successful. And so yeah, I suppose like the most specific I could get with advice was, um, yeah, like encouraging me to pursue further education.
Okay, but he knows that your parents are not successful, right?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, like they've been propped up quite a bit by him.
Right. Okay,
Um,
so if he
yeah,
knows that your parents aren't successful, then he knows that you're not going to get any particular information about success from your parents, so he needs to step in, right?
you'd think so. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not your job, so he doesn't give a shit either. Otherwise, he'd say, "Hey, you're in your 20s and, you're not really doing that much compared to your education. What can I do? How can I help?" That kind of stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry you're just not surrounded because that should be something that he would do, right?
Mm. Do you think it's like it's like I could like initiate conversations around that?
You certainly could, but you'd also have to perhaps ask why he hasn't. Like, what do you think of mom
Mm.
and dad? Like, do you think they're successful? Well, no. Well, I mean, why haven't you sat down and tried to help me out with things, or like just be curious, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, so the point you're making here, right, is that like in order to like have these conversations, like I would have, it would have to like have to like imply that yeah, like my parents haven't been successful, right, and kind of address like what's gone wrong there, and how I can like not let that kind of become me as well, right?
yes, but just noticing when people aren't helping you is very interesting and challenging, right? And of course, you're a
Yeah.
self-critical person, so you'd be more likely like, well, I must have done something that I failed to generate interest or whatever it is, right? There would be something, right?
Yeah.
You would say that
Yeah,
you
that's
failed.
kind of my default.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. It's a good thing to be self-critical, for sure, but not regarding your elders. With regards to your elders, it is their job to take an interest in you and their job to help you. You shouldn't be out there begging your grandfather, who knows your limitations at the moment and also knows the limitations of his children. He's got a dunderhead for a son-in-law and a wife who's happy to marry a dunderhead for many decades, which does not exactly undunderhead her. And so, yeah, I mean, if I have a grandchild and the grandchild is struggling, I mean, do you think I'm just going to talk about how great my life is and not do anything or say anything?
No, that would be wrong, like, morally, right? Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to surround yourself with people who, if you want to be successful, you need to surround yourself with people who are invested in your success, heavily ego invested, personally invested, emotionally invested in your success. And it just doesn't
Mm.
sound like anyone is doing that. And maybe they take the autism thing. And, there's the usual comment that I have, which is that people who call me and say that they're autistic, if you hadn't told me you're autistic, I never would have guessed.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, you're not observing my body language, and, if you, like, spent a week with me, I think you would definitely notice there's something wrong. Well, like, not wrong, but yes, something different, to be.
Well, maybe, but you are a intelligent, brilliant person raised by dunderheads. There's just going to be a
Mm.
certain amount of awkwardness in that no matter what.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, listen,
Mm.
shall we close up here? I know we didn't get to your dating life, but I think that this has a lot to do with it as a whole. I'm certainly happy if you want to book another call to talk about your dating life.
Mm.
But yeah,
Mm.
I would say that you got to shake off this determinism that you've had to deliver to your parents so that you could survive your childhood. You got to shake it
Yeah.
off, but that means getting angry at their deficiencies.
Yeah.
Then that shakes you out of
Yeah.
the weather and train tracks and inevitability dominoes stuff that goes on when we give too many excuses to our parents.
Right. Yeah, no, this has been really helpful. Thank you very much, and I'll probably listen back to it and, yeah,
Probably.
take some notes. No, I meant to. I will.
I
I
hope
will.
so.
I will.
I hope
I
so.
will. Yeah. No, I most certainly will.
All
Yeah.
right. All right, brother.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I
Great.
appreciate the conversation. I'm very sorry about the deficiencies in your upbringing. I have no doubt that you can overcome them. And I hope you'll keep me posted
Thank
about
you.
how things are going.
I will. I will.
All the
Thank you
best.
very much.
Bye bye.
Have a great day.